What's up, Highland? This is Ryan, Jeff, and Erin here today. We have a episode we're going to be diving into all about what Erin has today. Talk about her business. Jeff, where can people listen to us at?
They can listen to it on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. So we'll have it on there. So like and subscribe is all the kids say. I think my 6-year-old says that, even though he doesn't even know what it means.
He probably says 6-7, not like and subscribe.
Don't get people agitated with that.
Interact with this post.
Yeah. Have you heard this?
She doesn't have kids, so she may not know about the 6-7.
No, I don't know about 6-7.
Oh my gosh.
Is that like rage baiting children?
Everybody else.
No, it's kids say it and it angers the crap out of adults.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Especially like teachers. It's this whole thing that means nothing.
Literally.
Like kids, if they hear 6-7, they go crazy, and adults have no idea why, and it drives them nuts.
I have so many questions about this, but we can answer those later.
Yeah.
It means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. It just
came from like a rap song, and like I said, and then 4-1 is apparently going to be the next.
Oh, really?
2 numbers.
Be on lookout.
Yeah, at least that's what my first grader said.
They would know.
So he probably knows. But anyways, enough about that. Erin, how about you introduce yourself and your business, and we'll dive in.
Yeah, I'm Erin Barr, and I own Erin Barr Consulting. I have an HR consulting firm. We partner with small businesses, and basically we can provide you a whole HR department on a fractional basis. So a lot of businesses don't need full-time HR, but they do need that support. So that's what me and I have a small team that I work with, so that's what we do. Yep. And then we also work with individuals and provide resume services as well. So if you're looking to change jobs and need to update your resume, we have a whole service that we provide around that. So
where are you located? Do you work in Highland? Do you work locally? Do you work nationally, worldwide?
Well, so we do have international clients with international employees. I live in Highland. I office out of my home here in Highland, or I do go visit my clients at their sites as well. So a lot of the businesses we support are in the St. Louis metro area, but we do have some clients that have fully remote companies or have employees all over the world. So
it's awesome.
Yeah, I think right now we just looked and we have clients with employees in 43 states.
Wow. Once again, Highland getting national.
Yeah. So how did you get into this space? What or why are you doing this? Or how did you, like I said?
Yeah, I have been in human resources my whole career. I went to undergrad at McKendree and was introduced to the idea of HR consulting when I was interning at Landshire. Some of you might remember Landshire, the sandwich company. And knew that's what I wanted to do, but I knew that I needed to get some solid experience. And I had in my mind a magic number of 10 years, but I ended up, working longer than that for different companies and in different industries. And so in 2020, I felt like there was a real opportunity there. It was just, to me, very apparent that businesses really needed that additional support and to fill a gap. I think a lot of small businesses, they end up thinking of HRs as just paperwork, right? And so they assign that to somebody who's not an HR professional. Well, we all saw in 2020 how difficult the world of work can be sometimes, especially when the rules are changing all the time. People have, big feelings about something going on, and you really need that support. And so in October 2020, that's when I started.
So if HR is not just paperwork, then what is your definition of HR?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I spend a lot of time thinking about your life at work and the world of work. And HR is really there to be much more than a paper pusher. So there's a lot of coaching that goes into HR. I would say 90% of the conversations I have are spent talking about communication, how to communicate to employees, how they can communicate, back to you better. Really being strategic in how we're interacting with employees and building businesses, how people are building their careers, right? You think about, you hire someone who's an A player and they're really amazing. How are you going to keep them engaged in your business? How are you going to foster their growth? And so really, providing that thought partnership is a big part of what I do. Also, there's the forecasting element when we talk about strategy, right? Like thinking about where does my business look like now? What's it going to look like in 6 months? What's it going to look like in 2 years? And how do I plan for that? And then also there is the component of being compliant. Legally compliant. So that is making sure that your paperwork is all correct, but making sure your policies are all correct as well. And that, we're implementing policies correctly. People are following those policies correctly, et cetera.
Which is probably the biggest gap in small businesses as an owner. How many people actually create the policies? They just hire the person. Oh yeah, this is kind of what it is. Well, and there's nothing actually concrete.
Exactly. And that's the place that we start with most businesses that we work with. If there's somebody who's, maybe just as a one-off project even, they need a new handbook. That's something that we can help them with. And that's a good place to start, right? Reviewing their handbook, we're making sure that it's up to date. Our laws, especially in Illinois, are changing all the time and getting more and more complex. And so making sure that we do have the correct policies in place and the words that we use matter.
So I should would you take a look at my handbook?
Yes. A lot of businesses don't have one. Exactly.
So is that like a tip that someone needs HR help? If you are a business owner and you do not have a handbook to say, as Erin was talking, like, oh yeah, just if you need to update your handbook, well,
maybe you need
there's got to be one there to update. So is that a first tip that they need your help?
Exactly. Yes, that is a great sign they need my help. Also, think about what you do when you have a really complicated employee situation. Who do you go to? You're probably going to go to your lawyer. And that's okay. They'll give you great advice on how to handle it, but they may not, sit with you while you talk to that person. They may not tell you, hey, I think you should approach it with this tone, or give you these specific kind of talking points. And that's where HR kind of bridges that gap, right?
Yeah.
Their legal definitely has a place in the world of work today. But at the same time, thinking about how we talk to people and getting a desired outcome is part of it too. Not just saying this is the policy, amen. It's a lot, we all know work is a lot more complicated than that, and people's lives are a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah. So it seems like it's a lot more coaching than it is just like, I don't know, whatever. If you say HR, like the first thing that comes to mind is complaints.
Yeah.
That's just who I go to for my complaints, or that's where people go to complain. Versus like what you're saying is a lot more than complaints. It's a lot more coaching.
Yes.
And sure, if there's a complaint or whatever, but you're not just there to field complaints all day.
Did you watch The Office?
Oh, 100%. Yes, I am Toby.
Do you have a Michael in any of the?
I do have some Michaels. I have a lot of Dwights for some reason.
That's hilarious.
I need to see The Office.
It's great.
Yeah,
I've heard it's great. Never watched it.
Yeah.
Get through the first season.
I actually think of the movie Office Space quite a bit. You wouldn't believe how many situations I handle where someone is saying, I have 6 bosses, and when I do something wrong, 6 people tell me about it. I spend a lot of time talking about situations like that, and I think that's really true, especially people that work in larger organizations, or if you're a small business but you don't have clearly defined roles. That's when people get a lot of that, the kind of death by 1,000 cuts.
Interesting.
That is interesting. What is your favorite part of what you do? Like what?
I'd say my favorite part of what I do is probably everybody else's least favorite part. When things are really complicated and, we have serious situations to investigate or serious problems to solve, the more complicated, the better. That's the stuff that I like. I like digging in. I like really thinking about the subtleties of how we're going to talk about something, what we're going to say, how we're going to make sure that it's compliant, but then also taking into account, right, like, this might be someone we want to work through this problem with. How are we going to get to that desired outcome? And really thinking about that communication piece. So
you're going to run into the fire instead of running away.
100%. Yep. I enjoy that so much more than a dull day pushing paper.
Yeah. Once again, there's another cue. If you were a business owner and you just keep on letting that fire go in that trash can and you stop, you just like, I'll mess with it tomorrow. That might be another cue to reach out to Erin.
Yeah. Or if it sounds like if, a lot of business owners just run from dealing with employees instead of just having the conversation. They just keep letting the thing go that's driving them nuts until they lose their shit.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, they wait until they get to
fair?
until they just get pushed over the edge. And a lot of it is they don't know where to start, or they let it go on. And so now you have to start somewhere, but not maybe knowing how to get started or how to move forward and really change the tone of what's going on. That is complicated. And I think a lot of employers do get to that. They do get to that point where they just don't know what to do. And that's really what I want them to think of me. We work with small businesses on, some on a daily basis. We're essentially their HR department, where their employees reach out to me directly if they need something. But then some businesses I work with, and I work directly with the owners or the leaders and provide a lot of, coaching and kind of strategic support. So even just someone to call and say, hey, I've got this situation, let's talk through it. So we can come up with a custom solution for whatever a business needs in terms of support.
How many employees that a small business has? Did you say that already?
When I think of a small business, I think of anybody that has less than 50 employees is a small business.
And that's the range that you work in?
Primarily, yes. We do work with some larger businesses that might have like 100 to 150 employees, but the majority of teams we work with have 50 or less. And I think the smallest team we work with has 2 employees.
Gotcha.
Awesome. Like I said, I love the idea that it's a lot more coaching than it is just, like you said, just pushing papers and fielding complaints. The other thing that I know you said you do, and I've talked to you about it kind of before a little bit, is helping people with resumes, finding jobs. That's a whole nother area that I think a lot of people don't know much about. Some people have been in the same job for 15 years, 20 years, and they don't even know what a resume is anymore, or obviously things have changed. Is that fair assessment?
Absolutely. Things have definitely changed when it comes to finding a job. It's a lot more complicated than it used to be. And I think there's this idea that certain jobs don't need a resume, right? I work at an auto body repair shop. I don't need a resume for that. That's not true. You do. You need a document that really spells out all of your experience to help sell yourself to that future employer, but also just to let them know what you have done. You can't assume that they're going to know when you say this is what I do. You may be doing actually a lot more than what they're assuming. So you have to kind of have that, put pen to paper and have that written down. The other thing is, all businesses, for the most part, require you to fill out an application. So if you already have a resume that's kind of locked and loaded, you can just use that information and easily transfer it to an application. So then you've just done all the thinking about it once, if that makes sense.
So if somebody hasn't filled out an application in 10 years or built a resume in 10 years and maybe even longer, I don't know, like when somebody comes to you, like when's the last time they've filled one out and what's changed since then that they need to be aware of now?
Yeah. So we work with anybody in any industry or any job. We can help you with your resume. And so if it's been a long time since you've thought about that, what we do is you pick a package. They're all on our website, erinbarr.com. And we will have a meeting and we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about what you do today. We're going to go through all of your past jobs. We're going to ask you a bunch of questions about what you have done, what skills that you have, maybe what computer softwares that you've used, any special accreditations or education that you might have. We're going to ask you all of those details. Then we're going to help you and put all of that information into a resume format that is acceptable and something that you can email to somebody, or if you're applying somewhere that requires you to upload it through their application system, we have it formatted in a way that will make sure it translates over to that and nothing gets messed up or out of place. That's one of the things that's more complicated today is the use of AI in recruitment. Making sure that you have the right keywords are really critical on your resume. Making sure that the format of your resume can be uploaded to these applicant tracking systems. I know when I say that, I'm already blowing some minds, and people are like, just forget it. I'll stay where I'm at. But really, once we do this you'll be set, and you can go out with confidence and know that you're going to apply and be able to get through all of those hurdles.
I could see a scenario where someone sitting down with you has been in that job for a very long time and is ready for a change, but they may not fully realize their worth until they sit down with you, or they're struggling like, well, I don't have, what skills do I have to go? Mm-hmm. But when you start bringing those questions up, I could see a scenario where they start realizing, oh, you know what? I do have worth. I am capable of finding something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many people downplay what they do on a day-to-day basis, especially if you work in a smaller mid-sized organization. You're probably wearing a lot of hats. Mm-hmm. Your title might be, shipping coordinator, but you really may be doing some office manager type of things. You may be helping in a different area, and that's not, something that's easy to translate. So you have to make sure that you spell that out on a resume. I think people have a lot of different skills that they don't even realize. Also, we'll talk about what you want to do next. That's going to matter too, how we word things, how we tailor your resume. What's your goal? Are you going to be an executive for your next stop? Are you just looking to, maybe move from one, industrial manufacturer to another? What's the end goal?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see people sitting at home and being like, oh man, it'd be nice to just take a look see what my options are, but I have no idea how to even start building a resume, because I really have no clue. Do you use Microsoft Word? You don't even print this thing out anymore, right?
He's not lying. He has no clue.
I literally have no clue. Where would I even start to build a resume? Is there
how many pages should it be? Yeah. How many sections should I include?
Do I need bullet points?
Should I put my picture on it? A lot of people ask me that.
Picture on a resume?
That is that is something that
it's been a while.
You should not do that, by the
way.
You
should not.
You should not do that. Sometimes if you're using a different type of resume or applying for an international job, that's a little more acceptable. But we do not do that here in the United States. And you shouldn't do that, because that could create an unconscious bias somehow.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I never thought about that, but I never thought about that you'd put your picture on it.
Yeah.
Do you help with interviews as well?
We don't have a service for that, but we do, when we're working with our resume clients, we do give them tips and tricks for applying and for negotiating their job offer and a little bit of interview information.
Do you have a couple just quick, brief examples of how to present yourself, how to good follow-up technique, or any kind of just quick little techniques that you can share now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not giving everything away?
No, absolutely. When you're going into an interview, a lot of times, depending on the size of the company, right, somebody's going to call you to set up that interview. When you're on the phone with them, ask them, what should I wear to this interview? Because some companies, they don't want you to show up in a suit and tie, right? If they're super industrial, they're not expecting that, and they don't want that. But some companies, they're like, we're very formal here. You should show up business professional. You should bring your A game in that way. The other thing is, when you get into the interview, the more relaxed you can be and the more you can be yourself, the better. I know that can be really hard and seem like the opposite of what we would tell people, but you want them to get to know you. You also want to talk to them in a conversational way. Yes, they're going to have questions, but, giving really stiff answers that you think they want to hear, 9 times out of 10, that is just not a good way to go. The other thing that I'm seeing candidates ask me a lot too is, should I use AI to help me in my interview, especially if it's an interview that they're doing over Zoom? The answer is no. Do not use AI to help you.
You got your phone on the screen. Let me think about that.
A little earpiece in there to just tell me what to say.
There are apps and there are things that you can generate that they will ask you a question, and you can set your phone up and it will interpret the question and give you a response. And so then you're sitting there reading off of a teleprompter, essentially.
Oh my gosh.
And
can't see how that goes wrong.
Some interviewers will say, I want you to share your screen. I want to make sure you don't have any other windows open. I think especially our younger generation, they're much more comfortable using that.
Zoom interview.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so really staying away from that, right?
And I can see, people having, it's a very high anxiety situation. And I can see people wanting to if AI can make me be a little bit calmer, I can see that. You know,
Yeah.
I can see them really wanting to try that, and then I can see it going horribly wrong every single time.
Yeah.
With AI.
And I think that goes back to people, you know, the interview process is just that. It's a process, and it is a company trying to find someone who's a right fit. You know, if you have 20 years of experience doing what you're doing, you're a subject matter expert. Go into that with the confidence. You know what you're doing. So don't be afraid to just calmly explain what you already know. And I think that's really hard for a lot of people because they're more hung up on the process than they are the information and the answers that they're giving.
And I really like that idea of asking the question about what to expect from the interview. Like, how do I dress? Like, I wish I would have done that.
That's a great question.
One, as an employer, it's like, oh, this person actually cares about how they're supposed to show up, and they're willing to ask questions to learn.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then two, I can go in it with confidence. Like, I know I'm dressed up. Like, that's one less thing I have to worry about. Like, am I overdressed? Am I dressed well enough? And I'm walking into this place.
Yeah.
And I'm already nervous about 20 other things. That's just one less thing. And I'm sure there's probably other questions that you could kind of ask, like, what kind of interview will this be? And
how long will it take?
How long will it take?
How many people am I going to meet with, or who am I going to meet with? And they'll oftentimes give you a list of people and their job titles, so then you can go on LinkedIn and look them up ahead of time and maybe know a little bit about them, or find out, like, oh, hey, I see you went to this university. I went there as well. Or, you know, something that you have in common with them. Sometimes that helps to break the ice, right? To find out what you have in common. The other thing I tell people when you're going, especially for an in-person interview, do not show up super early. 15 minutes, that's great. More than 15 minutes, sit in your car. Go, if you're like driving somewhere that you've never been before, go find a place to get a cup of coffee. But don't get there way, way early.
That's good. What about during the interview? So I don't know if this has been good advice, but I have recommended people to do research on the company that you're interviewing or that's interviewing you, and also create some questions to ask them during the interview. So it almost is like you're just as much intrigued about you're not just desperate saying, I'll take anything you give me.
Exactly.
I've heard that that's a really great tactic, and that gets them wanting you more. Is there any truth behind that?
There is a lot of truth behind that.
Or am I just
bullshit? No, go in blind. Don't know anything. Yes, no, that is great. And, you know, I think a lot of employers, when they think about the values they want in someone, they want someone who's prepared, but also naturally inquisitive, right? I'm curious about things. I'm curious if they're making a product. I'm curious about how you make this. I'm curious about your corporate culture. You know, there is an element in an interview too of what can they do for you, right? You know, you want to be running towards something for your next step, not just taking the next thing that comes along. And so really trying to find that out. So some good basic questions and basic research to do. We'll start with research. Look at their website. I mean, obviously that should give you a good idea about their history, you know, what it is that they do there, maybe even how they do it. Just gives you some good information to start with, but also Google them. See if they've been in the news recently. That's a smart move, right? You may see something about they've rolled out a new product and that wasn't, you know, highlighted on their website. You may see someone got an award for something, those types of things. And that will help you, you know, create some questions and prompt that. Good questions to ask, generally speaking. Ask, you know, your interviewer why they like to work there. What do they like about the culture? How do they describe the culture is big as well. Also, you know, don't be afraid to ask, if I get this role, what does my first couple of weeks look like on the job? What do you want to see me achieve in the first, you know, 90 days in this role as well? All good places to start.
And those are all, I think, someone who's is extremely anxious and is just desperate to get that job, or they're dying to have that job or career. They are so scared to ask that question because they think it's like almost a little controversial to be asking those questions. The reality is it's not. It just makes them more excited to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows your excitement. It also does show, you know, if you're asking questions to say, hey, I see you rolled out this new product. Can you tell me about what that cycle was like, right? Yeah. It just shows that you did take the time to prepare for the interview, and that you're interested in the company that you could potentially be joining. You know, you want to join a place that it's not just that you fit in with the culture, but you add something to the culture. And that's going to be the perspective they're looking at. And so you want to look at it that same way.
I love it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Lots of good information, Erin, and, you know, really cool to talk about, like I said, because I'm totally naive to all this stuff. I haven't had to think resume or anything like that in almost 20 years. So thanks for all the information. And anything else, questions? Or
what's a good way for everybody to get a hold of you if they're interested, individual or a business owner?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website, it's Erin A. Barr. It's erinabarr.com. And there is a form that you can fill out on the website to contact me.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. That was great.
Thank you both.